Hi, today we're going to talk about populations, samples, and types of samples. So, first off, when we're in math and we're talking about a population, that really means that we are curious about learning something about a group of something. So, usually a group of people, sometimes a group of animals, maybe a group of products. But that's our population. So, for example, if I'm curious about how many people in our school eat school lunch, then our population, the group of people I'm curious to know more about, is the school. If I'm curious to know how many people in our town shop at the grocery store on Saturdays, then the population is people in our town. That's who I want to know more information about. If I'm curious about or if I'm curious to find out of all the girls in our school, how many of them wear tennis shoes, then the population I'm curious about, the population, the group of people I want to know more about would be girls in our school. That's all examples of people. Maybe I'm curious to know of all the birds who fly south for the winter, how many of them stop in Mexico or something like that. Then the population I'm curious about is all the birds who fly south for the winter. Now that's a ginormous population, but that's what I could be curious about. Maybe I'm curious about of all the deer who live uh, in our town, how many of them stay in town all the time versus come and go from our town? Well, then in that case, the population I'm curious about are all the deer in this area. So, not all the deer in the whole state, but just in this area. So, that's just examples of what is a population. A population is the group of people I'm curious about. Now, the reality is that it is just not realistic to ask every single person, right? If I'm curious about, of all the people in our town, how many people shop at the grocery store on Saturdays, it is not realistic to go ask every single person in town, hey, do you shop at the grocery store on Saturdays? That would be insane. So, what we do is we take a sample of the population. So, that means we take a smaller group of the population. We just ask them. Now, it's important how you gather the sample. For example, if the way you gather the sample is by going to the grocery store on a Saturday and saying, do you shop at the grocery store on Saturday? Well, then 100% of the people will say yes. And it'll seem like, oh, every single person in our town shops at the grocery store on a Saturday. That is not a good way to collect a sample. That's actually called a convenience sample. You did something that's just easy for you, right? You just ask people at the grocery store if they shop on a Saturday. That's called a convenience sample. That's not going to actually show us for real how many people shop at the grocery store on a Saturday. So instead, what you need is a random sample. Usually, a random sample is taken in some way random. So, what I mean by that is maybe you have a list of everyone who lives in town, and they're numbered 1 through 5,000 or whatever, and then you just randomly choose a number between 1 and 5,000. Right? You can have a random number generator on the computer. It can do it for you. That would be then randomly choosing people from your population. That is a random sample. Maybe we're talking about all the people in our school, and we're talking about, hey, how many people eat school lunch? Well, instead of asking every single person, I mean, we can't even guarantee necessarily that we get every single person. We could take a sample. Now, of course, a convenience sample would be just walking into someone's classroom and saying, okay, everyone in this class, raise your hand if you take school lunch. That's easy for you. It's nice and easy, but that's called a convenience sample because it's not random. Maybe there is something about that specific group that makes them all want to eat school lunch or not want to eat school lunch. So that's not random. So instead, maybe you put every single student's name in a hat and you draw names from a hat, and those are the people you ask. Or you list every single person and you randomly choose a person, or give them each a number and you randomly choose a number. That would be collecting a random sample. So that is population. Again, that's the group of people we are interested to learn more about. Sample, that's the group of people we actually find out the information about, because it's usually ridiculous to ask the entire population. Convenient sample, not good, right? That's like doing an easy way to get information, but then it's not accurate. And then random sample is the best way to take a sample. So there you go.